there is no doubt that the Rhapsody in Blue is a big draw for audiences.
Well, I think it's an absolutely incredible piece. Like a lot of his music, it's full of beautiful melodies, exciting rhythms, instantly memorable themes, and all his music and his incredible ability to combine classical forms with jazz and popular songs make it sort of appeal to everyone, I think.
I think it's a great piece. It's a really perfect combination between the classical idiom and the jazz idiom, and having piano with a jazz band, saxophones, banjo. It's a great combination. Lots of colours, lots of scope for different sounds within the orchestra.
It's a fascinating piece. It's a real concert piece, a marvellous audience piece. It's an absolute spectacle. It's unusual in the sense that I think he wrote it at very short notice. And in some ways it's a series of piano improvisations strung together with orchestral interludes. But it's very bold and brassy and jazzy, and I thought it would be a fantastic contrast to everything else that's in the programme.
Quite often, if they're playing in a jazz piece, you do have to ask them to swing, and you have to ask them to loosen their ties a bit and let their hair down, because classical musicians tend to be quite strict and organised and less comfortable with being with relaxing the rhythm. But in Gershwin, really it's traditional not to swing in this particular piece, and so therefore I think he's written in the rhythms so that they don't really have to do anything differently, but it sounds obviously very jazzy.
My big brother's a jazz musician, so I've been sort of listening to and absorbing jazz from a very young age. I do a bit of improvising myself. I wouldn't describe myself as a jazz musician by any means, but yeah, being absorbed in the style for so long, I feel quite comfortable with it myself.
Now, the Mozart Symphony is very lively, a very classical piece, an incredible work in that particular genre, and I was trying to think of one of the most contrasting pieces we could do with the forces at our disposal, and the Gershwin seemed like the opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, I suppose the main difference is the sound world you're trying to create. I mean, with Gershwin there's much more room for sort of spiky, orchestrally rich sounds. With Mozart you're trying to be sort of very precise and simply beautiful. So yeah, I suppose the sound world is the main area of difference.
I think, having played it, it's more of a jazz-influenced piece. All the wind and brass parts, they're playing in a very jazzy style, from the opening clarinet glissando up, which is a very famous thing. Apparently, in the first rehearsal of that, the clarinetist did it by mistake, this big sort of swooping glissando upwards. And George Gershwin said, "Oh, let's keep that in. That's marvellous."
I don't know why it became so popular. I think it was written at the right time. There was a time when Paul Whiteman, who commissioned this piece, was at the time trying to establish what was American music and trying to bring a sort of popular audience into classical concerts and to increase their appreciation for classical concerts, for orchestra concerts, for opera. And so he was starting this kind of cross-genre writing, and Gershwin went in there and wrote this piece. Actually, he had some competition from somebody else. He wrote it quite quickly. He wrote it in, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, and he said that the whole idea for it came to him on a train. So we get quite a lot of this kind of mechanical sounds and the mechanisms of the train, the rhythms of the train. I think you can hear it in the rhythms of the piece.
We have 3 main residencies at the moment. The one in Stratford is about the concerts that we do at the Playhouse, but also about the work we do in care homes and schools. And that's the same here in Birmingham, except there's a real onus on working with the students. For example, in the rehearsal that we've just been doing, we have a side-by-side scheme where the students from all departments, from the strings and the wind and the percussion, they come in and they sit side by side. It's a very useful thing for students. A number of professional players in the orchestra did these kind of schemes when they were students, and found them to be some of the most useful and rewarding aspects of their learning.